can talk about, if we are going to stereotype people, we're going to use those negative attitudes, what type of psychological long-range impact? You know, I don't know if you observe girls and boys, whether they're little or old, they have this type of pecking order that sometimes can leave one person out, like odd man out, odd girl out. That's really important to think about in terms of our study, and this whole PowerPoint is on your site for this. But this whole thing, these are researchers who've really done a lot of research on that type of impact. The social emotional impact. So why is there a high suicidal rate with this particular group? Because the role models of people who are gay, lesbian, they can be in the closet, you know, especially you have to look at educators, me being one. It was difficult for me to come out and say, okay, I think you need to meet a lesbian today. You know, it wasn't one of those things that you would do normally. So I think you have to work through, because when you are coming out, or when these students are coming out, it's an ongoing process. So if you think about the Pride Campus components, which are really important, they talk about what does it mean to have a safe and affirming environment, no matter who you are. So within that context of embracing all diversity as part of one common community, it's really important to think about, we have common struggles. Some of us want to achieve. Some of us may have difficulty because we come from different places. So in this particular campus, there was there's a high incident of gay, lesbian people who are homeless. So how do you deal with that? Now, why are they homeless? They've been kicked out of their families, not except, you know, myriad of things. So what type of training are we going to provide for our staff, for our community at large, so people are at least familiar with it, and not just what the media has. So the courts have kind of protected us, we think. No Child Left Behind in 2001 set up that highly qualified, and we need to make sure that there's not violence and promote school safety. So we do have kind of a legal responsibility. You can follow the golden rule. So I would have this conversation with my students and with my faculty. You know, just substitute something other than gay, lesbian when you hear it, and how would you approach it? If it was black, if it was Asian, and I'm Italian, how about if they use a discriminatory term against me? So think about, it should be handled differently. And that commonality, that common rule is something that we need to talk about. We do have things about bullying. You should know that this particular case, Nabowski, was a sophomore. He was abused, ridiculed, harassed, even to the point that I happened to interview the lawyer who represented him. He was even urinated upon because he was gay. And the school district, for a long period of time in Wisconsin, did not do anything about it. So in 1995, this young guy said, okay, enough is enough. So it was the first case where $900,000 a school district had to pay. First time that ever happened. So that's kind of pivotal. There's also something for Teach for Tolerance that they gave out called bullying that you could use as an example of his story. They have a right to be in school, and no one has a right to feel that they have to be retaliated against that.
Teaching for Tolerance also has a strategy of putting a peace table in your classroom. I don't know if you've seen that. Well, you actually have a little place, a designated area in your classroom that's a table or a quiet corner, and children who have disputes, have conflicts, have issues with the way they're being spoken to or addressed, are invited to then go to this site in the classroom where they can resolve it in some ways. But they actually have an opportunity to speak, and there's obviously ground rules. We speak respectfully to each other, we let each other finish the conversation before we start.
It's conflict resolution.
It's all conflict resolution. But I've seen it in action, even with 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds. I've seen it with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. I've seen a similar makeup of it in an 8th grade classroom.
So it's important to let your students know that this is a safe place. So there are different symbols that you can use. Obviously, the rainbow flag, anything colorful. So people get cues out there that if they are afraid, that they can come and get it.
Several of the high schools in various major cities in the United States, and approach teachers about the subject of addressing children with the question about what do they know about the terms gay and lesbian? What is it that they understand about those words? And so this film was produced, and I think you'll find some very interesting results. Some of it, you'll focus snippets. It's a good hour and 30-minute movie. It's a pretty long movie. But they talk to children in the young grades of 2nd and 3rd grade, and they talk to high school students in all different ages in between. And what they found was that most of the information that children brought into the classrooms came from films and books and TV programs, and nothing really authentic, nothing very real. And but they were very excited to talk about the subject, and it gave the teachers 2 different perspectives. And I want to show you the snippets first before we actually get to the conversation. I don't want to give too much away. I guess that's what I want to say.
And we don't have it in the image.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So these were, teachers volunteered to bring the curriculum into their classrooms, and they basically asked the question, what do you know about the words gay? What does the word gay mean to you? And I think it's interesting because the word gay is very generational. You know, there's some songs that were written in Hollywood musicals, and they used the I'm happy, I'm gay, but it was a West Side Story. I think there's a song that says happy, I'm gay. Yet the children that we work with today don't think of gay as being a happy person. They think of gay as somebody who walks, you know, in a certain way, or talks in a certain way, or dresses in a certain way. And are we still having trouble pulling it up? Okay.
Expression, freedom of expressions that come in. And, you know, you can look them up, because I really do think that we need to educate our students that there are legal ramifications for all of this. Then we had the Human Rights Amendment that was passed in the city of Chicago. So that was really pivotal. And presently we have civil unions that are going to be signed according to Governor Quinn. So we've come a long way, but still we aren't at a state where people are going to make comments. So these are all these types of rules and regulation. Now, Ben was part of a Gay Straight Alliance, which is really important for you to know about as students or as teachers, because everybody has a right to have a club. They only need one faculty sponsor. And I don't know how you formulate clubs here. I know in Deerfield and Highland Park you had to go through, okay, here's a faculty sponsor, what's your mission? You have to go through all these types of things, but you're allowed to do that. So you need to raise that consciousness, and you need to have a safe space. Then you want to...
You know, there's a lot of risk when you want to say, like, yeah, I'll be your GSA support person. They were afraid to lose their jobs. We had issues from parents saying, you know, why do we need a GSA? Our kids aren't gay. This is Libertyville. This isn't, you know, Chicago. We don't have gay kids or queer kids in general. So after a lot of fighting, we finally got one. We weren't able to do too much because it was a very new organization, but it was nice to have a safe space in our school where, you know, for the first time, like throughout my whole high school and even middle school career, I, you know, felt okay. Growing up, I knew from a very young age that I was different, so I struggled a lot. I was at risk, like I was a suicide risk, a lot of depression, like all sorts of unnecessary things, just because we didn't get the right support we needed from our school, from our communities. So having a GSA, it's not like we're recruiting anybody. It's making a safe space, and it's you know, for everybody involved, parents, teachers, students. Yeah. So.
Any questions of Ben?
How young Is this normally a high school, middle school thing, or do they have them in elementary schools?
I don't know about elementary school. I was just emailed Robin, who should have been here too, but she was saying that, you don't see it too much in elementary, but I thought like, well, yeah, GSA, I mean, kids may know their sexual orientation at that time, but it's a little too young to really express it properly, so I suggested maybe having like a diversity group, where that it would encompass like gay, straight, trans issues, but it would also talk about other like types of diversity, other types of families, and really just spread awareness. Because I think the sooner kids learn about these kind of issues, whether it's like gay issues or issues about like other cultures, the sooner they know, the sooner they can understand, and the less likely that they'll fear something, and that fear might turn into hatred. So we don't want any of that. The sooner the better, and it's just educating possible suicide.
I like what Ben says, leading right into my own thoughts about how to approach this in the curriculum and with my teachers. I'm really concerned about our teachers feeling comfortable to express their own identity in the classroom. That's who I work with even more so than the students in the high school or the elementary school. So I like to refer to different references, and mine is still the Judith Butler, who talks about gender troubles. And I think teachers should have the right to express any gender they want to or not. That's one of the issues. I think is that there's every right for you to think through, but it's not on you to have to self-identify. At the same time, you should be honored in the classroom. Also, teacher dispositions. I think we have to be careful with, given that the federal government is becoming more intrusive about who the teacher should be and what are, it feels to me very narrow, actually. It feels like it's increasingly more technical. And I'm trying to push back against that and deconstruct that and say we have to honor diversity across the board, so that teachers know that you don't have to change who you are to teach. I think that's a big challenge. And I wanted to reference that my fledgling efforts to build into my own curriculum this issue of gender identity, I like gender expression of that language too, has been met with some interesting challenges in my own classroom with teachers. There does seem to be a binary where people fall down, and when we look at the history of education and the teacher, that women became teachers because they were seen as maternal. And so we tried just deconstructing that word the other day in my classroom in Elgin. And asked, well, is maternal typically a disposition of women? And several women said, oh yes, and the men, the two men in the class, because usually I have 90% women oftentimes in the classroom, stepped up and said, no, I'm very maternal, and I agreed with them, because coming off of a sabbatical for 6 months, I felt pretty maternal. I was, as I'm seeing the stereotype, I was doing those things that mom does. And one of the women said, well, yes, of course, you can be maternal as a man if you're gay. And so I didn't think of it as a terribly negative thing to say, so that's why I was thrown. It was a teachable moment that I missed, and I don't know. But those are things you need to be prepared to discuss and unravel more of those specific binaries. I think those really need to be teased out more. And lastly, we are looking at supporting our teacher candidates so that they can go into the schools with tools, techniques, and ways of doing